Yes, we're finally back with Arcane Season 2. I previously covered the first 3 episodes which make up Part 1, which contained a lot of further setups pushing towards what was hinted at the end of Season 1, a rising conflict between the upper and lower cities. And with the way Episode 3 ended, it seemed that it was finally here. We're finally going to get the war between Piltover and Zon, because there's no way they would have baited us with all this setup, teasing it out, building up so much anticipation for something they're only going to resolve in 2 minutes with one of those music video thingies, right? Right? Episode 4, Paint the Town Blue, begins as you might expect, with another music video montage. The gist of this one is that Piltover's enforcers do indeed move into Zon en masse. This causes riots to break out, and Jinx becomes a symbol of Zon's resistance, especially her blue hair which the Zonites adopt. And there's not too much to say about this. Visually, it's the least impressive music video yet, made up of mostly still pictures with almost no animation at all. The song accompanying it is likewise lackluster, with deep stirring lyrics like this. Yeah, I don't know what that has to do with a civil war either. Anyway, intercut with the imagery of civil unrest, we get a few shots of Caitlyn and Mbessa hovering nearby, reminding us of their power dynamic. And we see that Caitlyn is still fixated on Jinx, who is suspiciously absent from the whole affair. The sequence ends as we see the little girl who took a liking to Jinx in Part 1. You know, the mute one who fell on top of her and then stalked her, the one who zapped Vi's will to fight and turned Vi and Caitlyn against one another. Yeah, that girl. She spray paints a mural of Jinx before running off. Now, if my only issues with this opening were what I've stated already, it would amount to little more than a few nitpicks. Barely an inconvenience, and I'd be able to move right along, but the truth is the problem with this sequence is far, far worse. You see, on the other side of the opening credits, we find the show takes a time jump of several weeks, and the war between Piltover and Zon is over. Let me say that again. The war the show spent 12 episodes building toward is over already. Piltover has subdued and now controls the Undercity. The war we thought we were going to get was a few weeks of riots and unrest. So in other words, there was no war. We didn't even get to see the bulk of the conflict. We don't know if anyone died or how many. We don't get to see how some of our pivotal characters reacted to this or what they did during this time. We get nothing. All that buildup and anticipation, and it amounts to nothing. To say this is a disappointment would be a massive understatement. But that's not all. The tone of this is way off. Again, we're talking about a major conflict. People injured and imprisoned. The rise of a pseudo-fascist regime in Piltover, subjugating the citizens of the Undercity. This is the worst nightmare of our main characters from Season 1. And instead of giving it the proper narrative weight it deserves, it plays out to a bland punk rock song about bitches and squeaky toys. This is another thing that I would submit as evidence to my theory that the Arcane writers were not interested in telling the story they themselves started. So much emphasis went into building up this conflict, but it isn't what they really cared about. So instead, they swiftly bypassed it so they could move on to something else that they do care about. But it leaves the show and its characters in shambles from which they will not recover. Consider what they told us in the first few episodes of Season 2 about what would happen if the Enforcers went into Zon.
You need to find a way to call off the invasion.
What? This battle was on your soil. Down there, you'll be on their terms.
They outnumber us 4-1.
Might matter up there, but they don't know the first thing about fighting in the fissures.
Turns out, nope, none of that was true. Piltover apparently was able to just waltz through and take it over. But it does make you wonder, where were some of our characters like Jinx and Vi while the Enforcers were taking over their home? Oh, don't worry, we'll get there. And it's far worse than you think. But first, we have a different character to assassinate. Well, more than she has been anyway. After the credits, Caitlyn is sitting on her bed. Dark colors, dark lighting, and what the subtitles call melancholy music implicitly tell us that Caitlyn is in a dark place. But as it turns out, she's not there alone. Caitlyn is sharing a bed with Maddie, the blonde enforcer girl who we were introduced to in Part 1.
Junior Officer Nolan. Maddie.
Yeah, Caitlyn and Maddie are lovers, apparently. Okay, writers, you can't do that. You can't have a character start a physical relationship with one character, dump them in the same episode, and then show them hooking up with a different character in the very next episode. I mean, I know they're lesbians, and it might be realistic, but it isn't good storytelling. Do they still want me to like Caitlyn, or are we supposed to hate her now? I can't tell, because they haven't shown us anything to explain why she's acting the way she is, to understand or empathize with her. There's no context for how this relationship came about or what purpose it serves. It's just kind of there to show us Caitlyn is well and truly over Vi, and so that we can have some sexposition, hearing these two spout plot information while Maddie gropes and nuzzles Caitlyn. Suffice it to say, I hate this and all it represents. Maddie comes off as a sycophant, and Caitlyn appears overly cold. She's not emotionally invested in this relationship. But anyway, through the dialogue, we learn that Piltover controls the Undercity, but the occupation is wearing on, while they still continue the hunt for Jinx. Caitlin isn't sure how to proceed, and the upper city is starting to get anxious about how many Noxian soldiers Ambessa has brought in. It almost seems as if Piltover is being occupied.
They doubled their fortification requests. Again.
But Caitlin says they need Ambessa and her men to keep the Undercity controlled, because our sniper has dug herself in a hole from which she can't climb out of, and she is still obsessed with Jinx. But where is Jinx? Where has she been? And what dastardly plot might she be cooking up? Oh, she's not. She's hiding out playing house with a little mute girl. No, I'm not kidding. They are really just playing games and pretending to be sisters.
You're lucky. I didn't get to do much of this with my older sis.
Jinx tells the girl that she reminds her of Powder, the girl she used to be. The mute girl grabs Jinx's gun and wants to take her somewhere, but Jinx tells her she isn't that person anymore. In fact, she says Jinx is dead.
Well, that's a past life, kid. Knows about as sweet as last year's milk. Jinx is dead.
What? Again, I feel like we're missing some story and character beats here to explain this radical shift. And what does it even mean? If she's not Powder and she's not Jinx, who the hell is she? Does she have an identity? Does she know? Are we supposed to know? Are we supposed to care? But it's no time for questions. On to the next scene. Ambessa and her right-hand man, Rictus, are watching a tech attempt some kind of hex-tech experiment. We don't know what it is or what they're trying to do, but the experiment doesn't go well and the tech is vaporized. Ambessa is less than pleased, and we learn that Mel isn't the only one missing. Apparently Jace and Heimerdinger are also, which means those two, and presumably Echo, never returned from the white void space that they entered. They're just gone. Ambessa and Rictus wonder if the Black Rose group abducted them too, because without them, there's no one in the city who knows how to work Hextech.
The moment we seize control of this backwater, everyone with an inkling of talent vanishes.
Hold on a minute. You're trying to tell me that in the City of Progress there isn't a single person who can follow Jace and Victor's notes? No one knows how to make Hextech work but them? No one? Really?
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
The point is, Ambessa isn't getting the weapons she wants, and she's feeling the walls close in around her. Next, we get a look at one of the security checkpoints in Zaun, and the oppression of the people there. Then a PA system starts to blast more punk rock. Some smoke bombs and fireworks go off, and a hooded figure stands above the chaos. But it isn't Jinx. It's the mute girl impersonating Jinx, trying to give hope to the people of the Undercity. Next, Ambessa goes to talk with Caitlin, and this scene is kind of a mess, full of stilted, forced dialogue. Ambessa, after seeing Caitlin and Maddie together, warns her against getting into relationships with coworkers.
I suppose I don't need to advise you on the hazards of professional entanglements.
Which seems kind of out of character for her, but I'm sure it's there for a reason. The two have a back and forth about whether Jinx is really back and how to best track her down. But this stuff doesn't matter. What we're supposed to take away from this is that Caitlin and Ambessa don't trust each other, and don't seem to like each other very much. Oh, and Caitlin's conscience is conveniently starting to catch up to her.
Why is peace always the justification for violence?
In another part of the city, we see Sallow as a husk of his former self. He was played by Ambessa, and the council has been supplanted by martial law, leaving him to wallow in self-pity. In his shimmer sessions with Lest, the Vixen tells Sallow about rumors of a healer who's working miracles in the fissures.
I keep hearing about this healer down in the fissures, way out on the fringes. They say he makes miracles happen.
She suggests that this mystery man, who we know as Victor, might be able to help Sallow too. In the Undercity, Savika goes to see the character formerly known as Jinx. Savika learns that formerly Jinx wasn't the one at the checkpoint attack, but says the incident has the whole Undercity riled, thinking that she is.
The whole Undercity's buzzing, saying you're back.
Savika tries to guilt-trip formerly Jinx into coming to a rally by bringing up Silco.
Do you know how much he sacrificed to protect you? He believed in your potential.
Well, then he shouldn't have died!
And it becomes apparent again that Savika and the whole Undercity still have no idea that Jinx is the one who killed Silco. It's really hard to believe that that's never come out. But in any case, formerly Jinx just isn't interested in fighting anymore, and she turns a frustrated Savika away. But the encounter sends formerly Jinx to talk to Silco, or his empty chair, the ghost of him left in her broken psyche. But just like the mute girl, who was finally called by name so that I can stop calling her mute girl, Isha. Like Isha, Silco's empty chair can't talk back, and formerly Jinx is left without a comfort or direction. Actually, everyone seems pretty lost, except Ambessa and Rictus, who are roughly interrogating a prisoner until he gives up the location of Savika's rally. At the rally, Savika is trying to get a modest crowd to stand up against their oppressors, and she's still lugging that laughably impractical arm around. But her speech isn't going over well. Most of the people have gathered to see Jinx, but there is a vibe shift when Isha appears with a blue flare. Though unfortunately the momentum is cut short when a spear soars through the air and impales Savika's big metal arm. Rictus is there with an army of enforcers, and they start to arrest the crowd, including Singed, who's there for some reason. But before being arrested, he cuts himself, and his blood starts to drip onto the pavement. which seems to awake his little pet project. When formerly Jinx returns home, she finds Isha gone. Then Savika shows up. Not only did she tuck tail and run, which isn't like her, but she also got away, somehow. Savika tells formerly Jinx that Isha went to the rally and got herself caught by the enforcers, and the news sends formerly into a spiral, and now she's Jinx again, I think. We see all the people who were arrested being taken to Stillwater Prison, and even though this is likely hours later, Singe's hand is still dripping blood, and his little science project is of course following the trail. Jinx and Savika have cooked up a little Star Wars-inspired plot to infiltrate the prison, which works amazingly well. They set about freeing all the prisoners from the rally, and Jinx gets to experience firsthand just how much she means to the people. Finally, Jinx finds Isha, but the enforcers have found them, and so has the science project. Warwick. Somehow he got aboard a trolley and got out to the prison, then made it into an elevator and down to just the right floor of the prison. Warwick makes short work of the enforcers and has a fight with Jinx, while Savika escapes with Isha. Parts of this sequence are actually well done. The animation is solid, and the speed ramps and slow-mo work. As long as you turn off your brain and don't think about the absurdity that led to this moment, it's an enjoyable sequence. Warwick easily overpowers Jinx and moves in for the kill when something happens. The beast stops and speaks her name. Her old name. Powder. Because, as we knew, Warwick is Vander. And on that note, the episode ends. And I'm reminded of Rings of Power, where one episode can have so much going on and yet so little actually happens. The plot is twisting itself into pretzel-shaped knots with holes the size of Mount Doom. The writers clearly don't care about continuing the story they started, and instead are intent on telling a different story, a story where our casts are merely there to serve the needs of the plot, drained of internal consistency or any kind of logic. That is, when we actually get to see them on screen. In this episode, we still get nothing from Jace, Heimerdinger, Echo, Mel, or most notably, Vi. All of them are MIA, but I'm sure they have a good reason for sidelining half of our core cast. I'll bet the answers are waiting in the very next episode. Let's find out. Episode 5, Blisters and Bedrock, opens as we've come to expect. Only this time, it's a little less music video and a little more classical montage. The focus of this sequence is Vi, so we do finally discover where she's been in the weeks since episode 3. But don't hold your breath, because there are no real answers to be had here. We learn some of the what, but none of the why. Vi, it seems, has become a regular at an underground fighting club somewhere in the Undercity. Where this place is, or how it's remained unaffected by Piltover's invasion, isn't answered. All we know that Vi has spent the majority of her time there. She fights, she drinks, and then she sleeps off in a dingy hole in the ground that looks more like a jail cell than an apartment. And that's it. That's all she's been doing. Fighting, drinking, sleeping. Though we do see she's been seeing things. Flashes of Caitlyn glimpsed in a crowd, though she isn't really there. And Jinx too, though she possibly has been there since it's later shown that Jinx knows where Vi is living. But this is another sore point for me. This in no way matches the Vi we knew previously. The writers want me to believe that Vi would abandon her principles, her friends, her allies, and abandon her home to do nothing while enforcers storm in and place the lanes under their heel, all because her girlfriend dumped her. Nope, don't buy it. This is lazy storytelling and more character assassination. By the end of this sequence, we see Vi has degenerated and become little more than a feral animal. It's tragic, because like with other examples, the harm done to Vi is rather irreparable. The character will not come back from this. Anyway, the sequence ends after a particularly bad bender. Vi is hungover, beaten, and bleeding in her room when Jinx appears. Vi flies at her, pinning her to the wall and choking her, but Jinx doesn't fight back. She tries to explain that Vander is still alive and that he needs help. Of course, Vi doesn't believe her and proceeds to slowly choke the life out of her. But Vi seems to see a glint in Jinx's eye, a flash of the girl she used to know. It's enough to get her to stop and let Jinx go. Gasping for breath, Jinx says that she can prove Vander is alive.
He needs our help. I can prove it.
Then we're back at Stillwater Prison. Caitlyn is surveying the aftermath of Warwick's attack. During this, she monologues about how she thought all their efforts at tyrannical peacekeeping occupation would soon come to an end, but now she feels foolish for believing so. And we jump to an interrogation room with Singed, because you see, he stayed locked in his cell, though we don't understand why. He left a blood trail to lead Warwick to the prison, supposedly to enable his and others' escape.
Chin up, little one. We won't be staying long.
But when Warwick arrived, he suddenly became aware that he couldn't control his creation and protected himself by staying locked in the cell. But then why did he lure Warwick out there if it wasn't to escape? Did he know he couldn't control the beast, or did he only figure that out later? Was Warwick after Singed? Was it after him to help him or kill him? None of this is answered. The truth is, the writers just needed to bring Singed and Ambessa together, while also bringing Warwick Vander together with Jinx and Vi. So even though it leaves unanswered questions and plot holes behind, it achieves what the writers needed it to do. So in the interrogation, Caitlin and Ambessa are questioning Singed. Caitlin says they know Singed was Warwick's target. They know he summoned it.
The beast came for you. It was summoned by you.
Though I don't know how they figured that out, since Singed remains uncooperative throughout the scene. Caitlin throws around some threats about letting Singed rot in the depths of the prison, but he still isn't interested in talking just yet. So aside from setting up the connection between Singed and Ambessa, the other thing this scene achieves is to continue Caitlin's villain arc. The attack on the prison has renewed her ire for the Undercity, stoked her obsession with Jinx, and temporarily banished any wavering doubts she seemed to be having earlier. This also continues to make Caitlin a reactionary character who's pushed around by circumstance and shows little agency of her own. Next, we catch up with Mel. Some quick cuts helpfully remind us how she was abducted by the Black Rose group, caught in a void with thorny vines and chains. And I think the figure all wrapped up is Mel's assistant, which means she's dead, I guess? Mel herself is swallowed up in darkness and ends up in a stone cell of sorts. But she isn't alone. She's sharing the room with someone, and right off we know something isn't right here. First and foremost, though we can see the other person lurking in the shadows behind Mel, she doesn't turn to look at the person she's speaking to. That she is speaking to them at all without knowing who it is, where she is, or what's going on strikes me as something that Mel wouldn't do. She's far too guarded and cautious to chat up a mystery voice after being dragged into a cell by an arcane force. But through the dialogue, we learn that they are being kept in something called an ocularum, and that Mel's assistant is indeed dead. Those thorny tendrils that held her also ripped her apart.
They killed my friend. Alora was there. And then...
But something the mystery guest says intrigues Mel enough to turn around and ask the man to step into the light so she can see him. He does, and she recognizes him as Kino, her brother, her supposedly dead brother. There's enough in this moment to make you question the official story about his death, but there's still something off about it, so I don't trust it just yet. Next, we're back with Jinx and Isha, and Vi, who agreed to follow them somewhere. I don't know where this is, but our characters are walking through tunnels deep underground. The only light comes from bioluminescent puffballs growing on the ground and walls. Jinx says the tunnels are where she lost Vander.
This is where I lost him.
And again, I don't know how any of them got from the prison to these tunnels. The prison is on an island off the coast of Piltover, like Alcatraz in San Francisco. Are these elaborate tunnels under the prison? Do they run under the bay linking still water to the mainland? Why would they do that? Again, no answers. Though she agreed to come along, Vi still doesn't trust Jinx, and thinks she's leading them on a wild goose chase. The sisters snipe at each other, trading jabs and insults until it devolves into an actual fight. Isha attempts to join the brawl to gang up on Vi. Vi knocks Isha off her, hitting her in the nose in the process. The action stops the fight as Jinx immediately runs over to check on the girl. The show of compassion strikes Vi and steals away her desire to fight, but Isha wipes her bloody nose and slaps a bright red handprint on the ground. And we know what that'll lead to. But in case you haven't been keeping up, we have a scene to spell it all out for you. Back in Stillwater, Ambessa has gone to see Singed. Something Singed anticipated. Apparently he knows Ambessa's reputation and counted on her being interested in Warwick for its potential as a weapon.
I've never seen a beast of such savagery.
Ambessa meets Singed's expectation and offers him a deal.
You will serve me. My enemies will be yours. Your weapons will be mine.
She gives him his watch back and the deal is struck. Then Singed explains who Warwick really is.
He isn't a monster. He was once a man.
The mad scientist thought the man's mind too lost to recover.
The man forever lost in the bowels of the beast.
But now knows that enough of Vander remains to respond to his surrogate daughters, though he is still compelled by blood.
Compelled only by the scent of blood.
Which means, yeah, while Vi and the others are trying to find Warwick, Warwick is now hunting them. In the Ocularum, Mel is talking to her brother, and Mel discovers that the cell is some kind of giant puzzle box. Meanwhile, Kino tells Mel that before he was captured, he was following a rumor that turned into a story. He says that their mother often traveled to a foreign land, that she fell in love and had an affair which resulted in a child.
Whatever that child inherited is of terrible interest to our captors.
Next, Singed is working on something, but it's not clear what yet. He and Ambessa are interrupted when Caitlin arrives. If she was unaware of Ambessa springing him from the prison, she doesn't show it, but she comes with a surprise of her own. She has tracked down records of who Singed was in a past life.
We have our answer now, don't we? Dr. Revik.
Caitlin readies her rifle and calls him a monster. Singed claims all he's done is for love. In a hidden room of his hidden laboratory lies a pod with a little girl inside. His daughter. Singed claims he is working to find a cure for the girl.
Precisely what are you trying to cure?
That affliction we all suffer. Death.
And he believes Warwick might just be the final piece he needs. This scene is okay as far as exposition dumps go, but it's still missing pieces. such as how Caitlin knew to go there in the first place, what she thinks of Mbessa pulling moves behind her back, or what she thought she was doing waving that rifle around. But we don't find out because we're back with Mel. She can see glowy patterns in the wall of her cell, like an ancient language she now understands, and continues to play with the puzzle. Kino isn't sure she should be messing around with it, but of course whoever she's talking to isn't really Kino. And they don't even try to let this one sit for a bit. They just give it away right here.
You aren't my brother.
The images of Kino flickers and changes into other people Mel knows, before turning into a copy of Mel herself. And then she's pulled back into the thorny void thing. A voice explains that the Black Rose people thought Kino might have been the mystery child. But he wasn't. It was, of course, Mel.
At first, it seemed plausible that he could have been the child. But then your mother led us to you, sister.
Oh, there's a big surprise! That's an incredible... I think I'm gonna have a heart attack and die from that surprise!
But a golden glow shines out from her back and explodes outward, destroying the chains. And now we have an answer to a question from the first episode of this season. How did Mel, Jace, and the others survive the rocket attack on the council chamber? Was it just a bit of contrived plot armor? While this show has been guilty of that at other points, it's not the case here. As it turns out, Mel has the ability to use magic. We see it manifest in this scene, and a similar golden glow shimmered across her back just before Jinx's rocket hit, meaning Mel and her latent, unknown magic shielded her and the others from the blast. And I have to say, I'm okay with this part of the reveal. I kind of wish they had built it up to it a little bit more, given us a little more time with Kino. It would have been nice to give us enough to overcome our initial suspicions of him, to believe that he might be real, to invest in his character, so that it would have hit with more impact when the truth came out. Also, a little more setup of this bastard child plot would have helped. If Mel had been uncovering parts of this during the first 3 episodes, trying to put the pieces together before she was abducted, and then having the final pieces delivered by Kino would have helped and allowed it to grow more organically, rather than just being dumped in a single expositional dialogue. However, I am glad we got an answer to one of the mysteries, and possibly an interesting turn in Mel's character. Next, we're back in the tunnels, and a gratuitous POV shot shows us that Warwick is indeed hunting down our characters, via Isha's blood. Meanwhile, Vi and the others stumble into a room, a hidden study that once belonged to Vander. Among the items they find a note Vander wrote to Silco after their little falling out in the river.
I told myself what I did to you was for the greater good, that you deserved it. But the dirt was on both our hands.
The clumsy attempt at an apology note leaves Jinx and Vi wondering what would have been different if Silco had ever gotten that letter. That question seems to eat at Vi as she thinks about her own relationship with Jinx. A great moment of tension is built here, as the thundering noise echoes toward them.
We have to get out of here.
What follows is some of the best and worst this episode has to offer. Warwick storms toward the group, focusing on Isha, but Vi moves in to shield the others with her gauntlets. Vi and Warwick fight in a kind of staccato sequence, using flashing imagery and jump cuts to sell the chaotic nature of the action. But I don't think it works very well. It is needlessly choppy and disjointed. But we get to see Warwick's impressive healing ability, as he immediately regenerates from the damage Vi does to him. While this is going on, Jinx desperately tries to convince Vi that the monster she's fighting is actually Vander. And for some reason, with this life and death moment, Vi chooses to believe Jinx and drops her guard. Warwick charges at her, and we flash to what is probably my favorite scene in this whole season. In a flashback, we see younger versions of Vander and Silco, hanging out in a bar, along with a woman with purple hair. The woman, Felicia, is Violet and Powder's mother. On that particular night, Felicia breaks the news that will change everything.
I'm knocked up.
Felicia is terrified with the prospect of raising a child in the Undercity, but claims it is a responsibility she intends to share with Vander and Silco.
Because the second I told you, I put you on the hook. You're not allowed to fail anymore. For her. For me.
In just a couple of minutes, we get a sense of the bonds these characters shared. We learn that their plans for the Undercity, for Zahn, were grounded in a desire to provide for Felicia's baby, to give her a better future. As the flashback fades, we're back in the tunnel, darkened because all the puffballs blew out or something. Jinx ignites her lighter and approaches the hulking silhouette of Warwick, unsure of what happens before the lights went out. As she gets closer, we see that Warwick is holding Vi in a fatherly embrace. Vi calls out for Jinx to join in, and she does, followed quickly by Isha, for one of the weirdest family reunions ever. And the sequence is fine. It rushes the resolution of the man or beast question, but it's fine. What comes next, however, is something else. We jump to the chamber at the base of the Hex Gate, the place Jace, Heimerdinger, and Echo disappeared from. A figure in a white cloak removes something, a power cell it seems. But before he can leave, he is pulled into the white void space with the evil orb thing, and Jace reappears, though he looks older and more worn. Unkempt hair and a beard indicate some time has passed for him, while his trusty hammer looks different also, twisted and covered in that veiny corruption that we've seen before. The cloaked figure pulls back his hood to reveal that it's Sallow, who apparently did go to see Victor and did get healed and is now working for Victor, all of which happened off screen. But after exchanging a couple of "what are you doing here's,"
Sallow? What are you doing here?
Jace. One could ask the same question.
We find out that Victor can now speak through Sallow. An awkward conversation unfolds between the three of them, where Jace learns that Victor has been using his Hextech powers to heal people. But Jace responds that Hextech is actually a curse that must be destroyed.
Hextech isn't a miracle. It's a curse. We have to end it, Victor.
Victor divines that Jace has also touched the Arcane, but has been scarred by it.
You too have touched the Arcane. Your mind suffered.
Then Sallow tries to leave again with the power cells, but Jace says he can't let him, and Jace kills Sallow to stop him, crushing him with one swing of his hammer. And on that note, episode 5 ends. So after being absent from episode 4, we do get a look at what's been happening with characters like Vi and Jace. Their re-emergence into the story, accounting for the several weeks time jump, makes no sense. The writers continue to contort these characters, placing them where they need them to be for the story to progress, and they're simply rushing through it at a pace that makes it hard to care about anything. But we've got one episode left in part 2 of season 2. Can they pull out of this nosedive the story is entering? Let's find out. Episode 6, The Message Hidden Within the Pattern, opens with Victor witnessing Sallow's final moments. And right off the bat, things are a little weird. First we see Victor as a vaporous apparition, floating in empty space. And he's not alone there, because Skye is there with him. Skye, who is Victor's former assistant, who was killed by the Hex Corps. It's not clear if this is really Skye, or what's left of her consciousness, trapped in whatever netherrealm this is, or if it's a product of Victor's imagination. The other odd thing here is that Victor seems oddly detached and dispassionate that one of his devotees was just murdered. He doesn't seem to care at all. Victor remarks that Jace isn't Jace, but that another will is working within him.
That isn't Jace. There is another will at work within him.
And just tuck that moment away for now, because we will come back to it later. Anyway, Victor is more interested in the evil orb thing that Jace encountered. Victor says it's a complex singularity that, well, I'll just let him say it.
This is a sophisticated conjuration. A singularity simultaneously self-replicating and self-annihilating.
Right. Did that make any sense to you?
Nope.
Me neither. So we still don't know what the evil orb thing is, how it got inside the Hex Gate, or what it's doing now. But never mind all that. We've got more plot to speed through. After the credits, Singe is being brought to an Oxian ship in the bay. On board the ship, Ambessa is training Caitlin to fight. There's a VO monologue about strength and might, and a lot of drivel that's trying to sound important, but it's not.
Tunnels in your eyes, lava in your veins, shadows in your heart. This is the truth of combat.
I'm confused. No, wait, I think maybe you're confused.
At the end of their sparring match, Singe arrives on the ship and claims that he's built a tracker that will help him locate Warwick. Though he doesn't know the exact location, he knows he's somewhere in Zon.
I've tracked him to Zone.
Let's hunt a beast.
Though I'm not sure why they would bring him all the way out to the ship to report that, just so they can leave the ship and go back to the mainland. But this revelation takes us to Zon, where Vi, Jinx, and Isha are taking Warwick Vander to the commune where Victor is. Apparently, after their group hug, one of them got the idea to see if the magical healer guy could heal Vander. Now, I don't know how they decided to do this, or why jaded, cynical characters like Vi and Jinx would believe rumors about a mystical healer guy. But that all happened off camera, between episodes, so I guess it doesn't matter. The group is met at the gates by a familiar face, Huck. He asks them to leave their weapons at the gate because the commune is a place of peace and healing.
I must ask you to surrender your weapons. This is a place of peace.
Jinx answers this request by sticking her gun in Huck's face, but Vi reluctantly agrees, dropping her gauntlets. Jinx rolls her eyes but follows suit, but not before popping her Hextech gem out of her gun. Just before they enter, there is a shot that lingers on Isha, as the girl eyes Vi's gauntlets. In the complex, Huck leads the group to Victor, who extends his hand to Warwick Vander. We see that both man and beast lie inside Vander, and some force knocks Victor back a bit. He hears Skye's voice saying that he has limits to what he can do, but Victor replies that it's worth the risk.
He is worth the risk.
What that risk isn't explained, but Victor agrees to do what he can to help Vander. In a sequence of what seems like days, Victor and Skye seem to dig through Vander's fractured psyche, and we get an impressive sequence that looks like animated watercolor, showing Vander's memories of Vi and Powder and their family. It's beautifully done, but it doesn't advance the story very much, nor does it explain what exactly Victor's doing to Warwick Vander. Elsewhere in the compound, Vi and Powder talk over their memories of their parents. Vi wonders if they might be able to find a new home within the commune. As if in answer to that, we jump to Singe, who has arrived at the gates of the commune, with Ambessa, Caitlin, and a generous number of Noxian soldiers. Apparently, Singe's tracker has led them right to it. Hold up, wait a minute. Didn't he mention that the tracker he was building wouldn't be precise?
This will allow you to locate your beast.
Not precisely.
Yep, that's what I thought he said. Ended up being more accurate than he thought, I guess. Anyway, Huck tells the Noxians what he told Vi's group, that they are welcome without their weapons. Ambessa doesn't have a lot of patience for that, but before Rictus can make that point, Singe steps up and suggests that the Herald, that's Victor, might be one of his former students, and he asks to go in to speak with him. And for some reason, Ambessa allows this, though she has no reason to trust Singe that much, and she hasn't been one to show restraint, especially when she believes force is called for. So I'm not sure why she's on board with this. In the compound, Victor is still working on Warwick Vander, and there's still no real sense of how much progress he's making, if any. And somehow, Singe is able to walk right into the room and declares that he knows Victor's powers are declining.
Your power is finite, diminished by every use.
I don't know how he knows this, but there's more. Singe says that the regenerative effects of Warwick's blood will stabilize Victor, but again, there's no sense of how he knows all this. Victor rejects this idea, saying that it would destroy Warwick Vander in the process. Then they talk about evolution and transcending nature, something Victor believes that he's accomplishing with his commune. Singe relents and agrees to leave, but on his way out he says that if Victor dies, his whole community will follow.
If you perish, this community is soon to follow.
What? So if Victor dies, his magic dies, and all the people he's healed will die too. First of all, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but secondly, if it is true, why would Victor be draining his ability to heal Vander, if by the end of it, he'll just die anyway? I don't know, and the show doesn't bother to answer that either. Vi sees Singe leave Victor's sanctuary, and for some reason she decides to follow him. Outside the compound, Ambessa and her forces have retreated for the moment, and Singe somehow knows where they are. Vi continues to follow him through a canyon outside the complex, but she's jumped by Caitlin, who's hiding out in the canyon, keeping watch for something. The two tussle for a moment and exchange some banter.
Your hair. You look like an angry oil slick.
Don't sugarcoat it, Cupcake.
Which is quite playful considering how their last meeting ended. And we get another exchange of, "What are you doing here?" Then we're in Ambessa's camp, somewhere in the canyon. Singe tells Ambessa that Victor's efforts will destroy Warwick's usefulness. Ambessa concludes that they will have to use force after all, though she was fully ready to do so before, and this way they bought a few hours so more plot can happen. Caitlin arrives at the tent, and she's brought a captured Vi with her. Hold up. I'm confused. Not about the show, but about the writers. Do they want us to buy that after their brief heart-to-heart, Caitlin suddenly turned on Vi and arrested her? Or do they want us to know this is a part of a ruse, because after a brief heart-to-heart with Vi, Caitlin has now decided to betray Ambessa? I really don't know which possibility the writers think we'll go with here. Do we think this is the first season Caitlin again? In which case, it's totally a ruse. Or do we think it's still second season Caitlin, in which case, Vi is screwed? For my part, I instantly believe that Caitlin had switched sides again, because of that little look in her eye when Vi called her Cupcake.
Don't sugarcoat it, Cupcake.
It was like a keyword that unlocked Caitlin 1.0. Next, we see Jace is in the canyon outside the commune. How he knew how to go there, or how he evaded all the Noxian soldiers in the canyon isn't made clear, but with everyone gathering in the same place, we know things are about to go down. Caitlin leaves Vi with Ambessa and walks through the camp, watching as the army prepares for an assault. In the commune, Jinx tells Isha that she's been thinking about how the young girl has changed her life, and we see that Caitlin and Singe have come back into the commune and have gone back into the room with Warwick. In the Noxian camp, Ambessa gets very chatty with Vi, expelling exposition about how she was able to exploit Vi's absence to turn Caitlin.
I owe you thanks. Your absence provided a vacuum I was able to fill.
Though Caitlin was the one who left Vi, so that's a bit of revisionism, either by Ambessa or by the writers, not sure which. Ambessa has some respect for Vi, but knows her presence will only cause problems, especially when it comes to Caitlin's loyalties. Though again, given the recent history, there's absolutely no evidence that she's more loyal to Vi than Ambessa. That doesn't matter. The situation is clear. To mitigate risk, Ambessa believes she has to kill Vi, but Vi isn't the least bit intimidated or worried.
Just shut the up.
Because as it should be obvious, this was all a ruse. As Vi breaks out of her restraints that weren't actually holding her, we get a quick flash that shows us how Vi and Caitlin set all this up. The sniper slipped Vi around from her rifle that turns into a net, which Vi uses to restrain Ambessa. At the same time, Caitlin knocks out Singed. I do kind of wonder why she waited to the last possible moment to do this, but we jump to Jace, who has snuck into the commune with his hammer.
I must ask you to surrender your weapons.
But Jace isn't doing well. He's hearing voices and seeing things. We see flashes of things that don't make much sense, and Jace almost blasts a kid who's just sitting on the ground. though the kid doesn't take it personally and leads Jace to Victor. Okay, Victor is doing a floaty thing and is in some kind of a trance. Caitlin tells Warwick that Vi sent her to get him out of the commune.
I'm going to get you out of here.
But she's jumped by Rictus, because he was following her, I guess. But before he can kill Caitlin, Jinx appears and tries to shoot him, and we get our first look at what those runes he carries do. Apparently they capture energy, so that Jinx's shot doesn't work. Wait, how did he sneak in his weapon? If Ambessa could sneak people into the complex with weapons, why hasn't she? Why are her people preparing an assault on the front gate when she could sneak them in the back? Never mind. I should stop asking questions. None of this is following any kind of logic. Stuff is just kind of happening, so let's go. Rictus and Jinx fight. It's a lot of flash without much substance. Rictus gets the upper hand and is about to kill Jinx when Warwick Vander wakes up to protect her. Ouch, he's gonna feel that one in the morning. But yay, Vander's back. Caitlin isn't happy to see Jinx, but Vi runs in with Isha. Okay, so what was the point of Fate capturing Vi and leaving her with Ambessa, if she was just gonna sneak back to the camp again? And Vi has Caitlin's rifle too, which she somehow got into the compound. What the hell's even happening here? Is that guard at the entrance anymore?
This is a place of peace.
Right, sorry, asking questions again. So everyone's back together again, and it's all happy, except Jace activates his hammer and lets off one hell of a blast, which hits Victor dead on. The whole compound sees the blast, and Victor has a hole blown clean through him, and it seems like he's dead. One by one, all of Victor's people fall to the ground and let out a chilling howl. Vi and the others race outside to see what's happened, and then from back inside the building comes another howl. With Victor gone, Vander has reverted back to Warwick. The beast emerges, mindless and savage. First he goes for Rictus, who gets torn apart, and of course right at that moment, Ambessa shows up with her army. Everyone starts fighting, while Victor's voice offers a monologue about the frail nature of man.
I understand now. The message hidden within the pattern.
Vi is injured and goes down. Jinx is injured and goes down. And Isha decides her moment has come. The little girl runs forward and scoops up Jinx's gun. She then proceeds to stuff the 2 Hex-Tech gems she took from Vi's gauntlets in with the original one Jinx had in there in the first place. And we all know what happens when you set off a bunch of those gems at once. Isha runs and slides right under Warwick. She points the gun at him and pulls the trigger, which sets off a massive explosion. And that is the end of the episode, and the end of part 2. And yeah, I don't have too much to say to wrap this up. The plot, or plots, are needlessly complicated with too many moving parts. They aren't developing any of the storylines, and the characters continue to swing wildly from one disposition to another. So I'm left again feeling that Arcane Season 2 is fine. If you turn off your brain and don't ask any questions or anything. But if you apply the smallest bit of critical analysis, the whole thing implodes. But then again, there are 3 episodes left. We still don't know what's going on with Echo or Heimerdinger, and maybe even with all this nonsense, they'll be able to stick the landing. Maybe. And just remember, this is all one Rebel's opinion. Let me know your thoughts on episodes 4, 5, and 6. Like the video and remember to subscribe so you'll get all the updates from Rebel Normal.